Hey guys, GHAZZY TV here with another Path of Exile video. This is going to be it might turn into a pretty long video because I'll probably spend the first 5 hours of this video being super defensive because of the toxicity that is surrounding this topic, and also of how obnoxious a large portion of the community has been when it comes to this. But I've also been very clear that the content I create is all about providing as much information and knowledge as I can. And there's also going to be my personal take on this, which might not be in line with something everyone will agree on, but I will still state my take on it so people know where I'm standing on this spectrum. But yeah, I'll probably just be as defensive as I can because you kids watching this video simply can't handle other people having a different opinion than you. So yeah, be nice in the chat. Be nice in the comments. Let's just read them so people understand what they are, because it also seems to me that a lot of people don't really understand what is happening. First off, previously every seed in the patch granted an instance that seeds craft. Now only some of the seeds do, so you're getting far fewer of the crafts that were overwhelming people with their quantity. Higher tier seeds are closer to the 1-to-1 ratio before. This means that you can have a patch of, say that there's 20 crafts, I think it's 24 or 30 or something, but say that there's 20 crafts or 20 seeds. You won't get all of them. You won't get 20 crafts. On the other hand, the higher tiers are closer to the 1-to-1 ratio. That means that some of those crafts that you will be seeing will actually wither. So that means that if there's a list saying, oh, there's 5 lightning and there's 15 fire, you're not going to get 5 lightning and 15 fire crafts. You're going to get less than that. I'm not sure how I like this part of this. The other part is some mods that had an overly deterministic behavior have been removed. This includes all annulment mods. That means that there will no longer be any remove fire, remove fizz, remove lightning, whatever. That will never happen. They don't exist anymore. They are keeping the one that removes a non-X craft adding X. So that one's being kept. And all type specific divine mods, you can't divine defense, divine lightning, divine fizz, you can't, those are all gone. Crafts that adds more of specific types, like physical modifiers, which is only mentioned because of the exploding modifier, for example, to item can now only be applied to non-influenced items. So these still exist. These is like these crafts are like Aug Fist and Aug Lightning, Aug Fire, for example. These will still exist, but they cannot be applied to influenced items, except for the existing mods that applies to influenced items, which is basically remove add influence, which I believe was removed because it was all annulment mods. Not sure if that one's going to be there, but it's going to be augment influence mod, or what was it, remove non-influence add influence mod will still be existing. And then the chance of encountering a portal to the Sacred Grove in a map has been increased by 60%. Now I know this has been kind of a joke where people say, you know, you never find it, so 60% on 0% chance of getting it is still 0, but you know, you're gonna encounter it earlier, more often. But yeah, it's not a big change. But I think this is fair. I don't mind, just to stop here, I don't mind this part. I'm a little bit confused with this one, but I don't mind the increasement. I think this one makes up for this one to some degree. So I think that's pretty fair. These are fair chances. I know Ciceron mentioned that whenever they nerf something with like ones, it usually is spot on. And when they nerf things in a multitude like this, they have a track record of failing miserably. The Heart of the Grove encounter is now in a map fragment that sometimes drops in tier 4 harvest bosses instead of randomly appearing in a place of normal harvest grove. I think this is amazing because every time you've encountered a harvest and evented and there's a Heart of the Grove, you've been disappointed. Well, I have at least. This allows you to trade the encounter if you don't feel up for it, and also means that people doing this for challenges will not have an easier time to do this in future leagues. So I think this is a perfect way to do it. Heart of the Grove in your map with difficult mods, it doesn't lead to an impossible encounter. Well, they've never been impossible with a proper build, but I understand this for people that don't play high budget builds or have the time or currency or experience to be able to do it. And the fight is actually super easy if you burst the boss. But if you don't burst the boss, even for high budget builds, the fight's just fucking obnoxious. Overall, this is undoubtedly a heavy nerf to the high-end harvest crafting, but we strongly believe that this is Path of Exile's best interest going forward. And, well, that's been proven to not be what people wanted. And there's still a lot of compelling harvest crafts that makes the Grove worth running at any point in the map progression. So I'm going to go through this, and like I said, these are my personal takes on it and how I view the nerfs. If you don't agree, there's no reason to hit the dislike button and being toxic or rude, but I would love to hear people's opinions in the comments. May they be negative or positive, I don't care. I'd love to hear the comments, and I'd like to read them. So I want to see more people. I've read up on comments in other videos, but I don't want to be seeing people flaming each other or being toxic. We have enough of that from other channels. We have enough of that on the Reddit, and that's not something that I would like on my channel. I know that this has been a problem, and I know that we're not going to be completely avoiding this. I just want to have that stated as a bit of a disclaimer. Where to start? We can start with the 1% crafting, because I am one of the people that are crafting mirror tier items pretty much every league. I craft for profit, I craft for mirror services, and I craft almost every gear on high body builds I play. Most of the items I craft myself because it is always cheaper, or mostly cheaper, to craft them yourself, and I think it's fun to craft. I love crafting in this game, and I loved crafting before Harvest came in. Now, before Harvest, it was basically, well, just before Harvest, it was basically just fossil crafting everything. I think that a lot of the items that we're going to be entering in terms of crafting processes will just turn into fossil craft in the future with this. So I don't think it's going to be that much of a problem when it comes to the top crafters in the game, and the one with a lot of currency, because crafting can always be bypassed very effectively. Since we're only losing augment specific modifiers from influence items, and we can actually still use other crafts, there are ways for us to deterministically craft things. I know we mentioned this on the stream earlier before making this video, where I watched Cistern's video with examples of this. I don't get the toxicity behind it because it was a very informational video on exactly what I was going to do today, but since he already made some specific suggestions in that video, I'm going to talk about it instead of showing you. So basically, there are ways for you to guarantee modifiers, such as blocking. And I know I have a lot of crafting guides out. I've written crafting guides out, which will have to wait till we see when they finalize these nerfs. I'll leave a link in the description to my crafting guide hub, which you can check out. I will be posting a lot of crafting guides there with a lot of crafting specific guides. So if you want to learn how to craft with the new nerfs that inevitably going to be implemented one way or another, you can learn how to do it in there. So again, I'm just trying to provide as much information as possible. So for the top crafters, what this means is that it's going to create a bit of a nuisance in terms of how we approach crafting. Since we're still able to use Reforge Keep Suffix or Reforge Keep Prefix crafting, it's not going to hurt us that much. Take a look at, we can take an example of a minion shield. Well, it's not done yet. So a perfect minion shield for Necromantic Ages players, what we do is we have the suffixes being the minimum charges for power and frenzy, and then a suffix open for bench crafting double damage. And then the hard one is to hit % damage per 1% chance to block attack damage. And then what we do is we create a X damage as extra chaos that is not cold. And once we have that, we do remove add cold on the third prefix till we hit the tier 1 cold damage, and then we do remove add chaos till we get cold as extra chaos to finalize it to get a perfect shield. That will obviously not be possible. So this is an example of this is not something we can deterministically play around with in the same way as we can deterministically approach a exploding mod chest, which is going to cost us a couple of X to do. But instead, the result will be walking and praying for the suffix opening and then doing the same thing. And instead, the result will be Reforge keeping suffix till you get the decent or proper mods that you would want on the prefixes. And then if you want the damage, extra damage, you always augment influence. But basically, getting a perfect shield is going to be close to impossible to get in this case. So basically, they're nerfing some of the items that we're able to achieve in terms of high-end items. Same thing goes for weapons like this. I have the mirrored version. One guy in our party, Anter, has the original. This is going to be this was already made a lot harder because they removed tags. They removed the caster tag on the minion skill. So basically, these type of crafts is really, really hard to achieve as it is. And the reason because they were made really hard to achieve was because they removed certain tags from certain crafts. And that, in my opinion, would have been a better way to nerf higher end crafting, removing tags from certain modifiers. That's all they really needed to do from my personal perspective, rather than the nerfs that we've seen that are coming in. They've already removed tags from the shield. For example, the power and frenzy charges, they were removed. Before they had frenzy was speed, I believe, and the power had a crit tag. So in the past, during Harvest League, for example, the way we crafted this was actually woking it. So we had two influences, and then we would scour the shield and alteration craft the tier 1 cold damage. And we would actually prioritize getting the prefixes. And then we could very easily deterministically approach the suffixes very, very easily with this. And that would have been a very, very effective way to nerf them. obviously that brings other issues, especially when it comes to fossil crafting when you're removing tags. So again, there's no perfect scenario where a solution would be better than the others, but that comes down to personal opinions. But my personal opinion would have been that they should have made a better overhaul of the tag system rather than the nerfs that they've done. So, to summarize what this means for the higher end crafters, it's basically going to be in a position where it's going to create a bit of a nuisance. Some of the super hard, big ticket items will be harder to craft, and some will be practically impossible to craft. An example of an impossible craft could be a helmet like this. With this one only has 2 elevated mods. The better version would have a 3rd elevated mod. This will be close to impossible to hit. And this helmet brings me to the other topic, which I know has turned into a big meme in the community, and that's the whole thing with slamming something with an exalted orb. Now, to give you some background information, I don't have that much currency on right now. I think I have about 300x worth of Maven orbs, 300 liquid, a couple of, well, 1300 chaos. I have like 6, 7, maybe 800 exalteds worth of currency right now, which is not really that much for what I usually have. But this is still vastly more than the majority of players in Path of Exile. In Harvest League, I had 2,000 Exaltus pure, and I didn't even focus on profit crafting. And that's because of 2 reasons. One is because I know what I'm doing when it comes to crafting, and the other one is because I play so much that I'm always available on the market, making me able to sell these things, and I can actually just keep profit crafting. So I benefit a lot from being able to play as much. So anyone telling you that playing more hours doesn't make you get more currency is wrong, because you're actually available on the market to sell your items. But there are other ways to profit. So we're not going to talk about profit crafting or profiting too much, but to give you an idea, like, I have a lot of currency for the most part every league. I slammed 1 modifier. I only used Exalted Orbs to determine this, well, to try to get 1 mod during Harvest League. And I still consider that to be an expensive thing to do, and I didn't want to do it. This league, I was going to do it, but we ended up being lucky on a Reforged craft with this helmet. And the mod I was trying to get was the plus level of socket and minion gems, which would be a 1.48% chance, equivalent to 1 in 67 exalted. And it would cost me, I think we averaged the craft based of the average craft cost to hit that, with the fails included, would cost me about 250 to 300 exalteds to hit it. There are some modifiers that you can slam deterministically. I see the chat's talking about it. That is the plus level of gems approach when it comes to the bow crafts, which is common knowledge for the most people that are interested in crafting. But for the most part, people never use exalteds to slam. We haven't used exalteds to slam items in a very, very, very long time. Ever since fossils was introduced, it was super rare that people did it on fossil crafted items. And the way PoE is stating that, the whole slamming thing is supposed to relate to the player base, I think that is very far off reality. Most people don't do it. Even the higher end crafters very, very, very rarely do this. And I think a lot of people consider that to be like a thorn in their eye, which has also been one of the many things that has escalated this entire topic into being as a cesspool of toxicity, basically. So to finalize and summarize what this means for the high-end crafters, the result is that a lot of us will roll back to doing a lot of we'll do harvest crafting still, but a lot of our crafting will be oriented around fossil crafting again. I also want to throw in the fact that I believe harvest was introduced in a really good way during Harvest League. It was great. We had so much power, and I don't think that harvest should have been implemented in the first place. I would rather have seen them fix crafting in a different way than to have Harvest Going Core. Harvest Going Core is the culprit of the problems that we have. Because Harvest Going Core has brought a lot of problems to the community, but the thing is, the problems are mostly in the form where the people that play a lot and are interested in trading, we have been able to abuse this to the extent where we can make such big items very easily, and we can make so much currency that it's just doesn't really matter. I'm going to ignore the solo self-fan aspect of the game when I'm talking about this, so you guys know. And how this affects the casual players is that Harvest Going Core has been very good for casual players for 2 different aspects. One of them is that when they do their own harvest and they get a craft, they have the choice to sell it, which I'm going to talk about the selling it soon. they have the choice to sell it, or they have the opportunity to use it themselves to try to get a better item than they already have, which was the original view of how Harvest was supposed to be for the game. Whereas the higher end players were abusing this to craft insane items. Now, the other aspect of this for casual players is that because there's such an insane amount or a higher quantity of really good items on the market, this means that there's a higher quantity of decent items on the market. And because there's so many of those items on the market, that creates a situation on the market where those items, when someone wants to buy them, instead of that being a seller's market, that turns into a buyer's market. And a quick TLDR on what that means: if it is a seller's market, for example, before Harvest, there was a lot of fossil craft that was very easy to craft and cost us like 5 to 10 exalted to craft, but the finished product would actually sell for 50 to 100x. That's a big profit margin. And that's one of many ways that a lot of us have made tons and tons of currency, because people don't know how to craft it or can't be arsed to, they're lazy, and they'd rather spend the currency to buy those items, and we make a lot of money doing that. That's a seller's market. A buyer's market is there are fewer people wanting to buy the items than exists on the market. And that means that the sellers are instead going to start undercutting one another to get their items sold before it turns into a situation where it's no longer profitable. And when that happens, that means that casual players will have access to bigger ticket items for a lower amount of currency. Now, that is actually a good result for casual players in the game. And that's one of the good things that spawned from having Harvest available to us. So there's basically two different aspects to it. Casual players will have easier access to cheaper access to bigger items, but they also still won't be able to do the big ticket items because they're not playing enough or don't have the knowledge enough to do the big ticket items, whereas the higher end players can capitalize on this to an extreme extent. So those are the two things that can happen with the Harvest. Now, with the nerfs to this, fewer people will craft, and it will hurt the casual players that didn't want to trade or didn't, and they'd rather craft their own items with the crafts they get, and will have a harder time doing this. And the reason for this is that I know that some content creators, like I watched this video just before I went live today, with the examples like I mentioned earlier in this video, you can very easily deterministically craft Explodey. You can very easily deterministically craft a +1 intelligence, +1 chaos amulet, for example. They're very easy ways to craft these things, but they require specific crafts. They require multi-craft. They require the meta crafts, as they're called, which is prefixes or suffixes cannot be changed. And all of these crafts cost a lot of currency. And then once you've put those blocks in, basically we're going to call them blocking crafts. And then you can use a reforge craft, which will remove the bench craft mods, but you will deterministically land on a specific mod that you want.
Nearing our second child.
Jesus.
Praygasm.
So basically, there are ways for us to basically go around the issue and create a situation where certain modifiers can be pseudo-augmented, instead of that being an Exalted Slam or using an augment craft that we have in the current state of the league. And we are instead using meta crafts to block it off. Even if this is, I see the chat with Doopy saying exactly what I was about to say. This is easy. It is very easy to do. It is very easy to understand when someone explains to you how it works and what actually is happening to the item when you do these things. Even if that is easy, that doesn't mean that that is accessible by the majority of the player base, because the craft like that is actually very, very, very expensive. 6 Exalteds, I mean, yeah, I can do this. It's fine. That's whatever. I don't care. But that's me. I play 10, 15, 16 hours a fucking day. Currency is easy for me and a lot of people. That doesn't mean that it's easy for the casual players. And this is going to hurt them a lot. So even if it's easy, it's expensive. And that being expensive creates other issues. So there's a reason why people are so hurt by this. And it's like I said, the first thing I said when I saw it on the tweet, thanks so much for the gift of sub shield, Bill, appreciate it. So basically there was a situation on Twitter where I made a statement to finalize my comment on the Harvest nerfs. Is basically this: it's going to be a nuisance for the people that play a lot, and it's going to be annoying. It's not going to prevent us from doing big ticket items. It is not going to prevent us from abusing the crafts and making insane amount of currency, but it's hurting the casual players so much it's insane. But yeah, that's basically my take on it. Another thing to mention when it comes to these nerfs is that people didn't want Harvest to be nerfed. People wanted Harvest to be easier to handle. trading. People didn't want to go into the Forbidden Trove Discord to buy crafts. People didn't want to go in there to sell crafts. It's just silly. People didn't want to do that. They never wanted to do that. I applaud the Forbidden Trove. I think that their Discord and the way they do, I have to say that it is amazing. I think it's a fucking terrible shit solution, but it is the best we got. And I think it's amazing that we have it. Can you imagine trading these crafts without that Discord? Fuck no. It's amazing what they're doing. They're not perfect. They're third-party community members. Yes, they've had some shit happening in the past. Who hasn't? Jesus Christ. Sit down. I need to get all your panties up in a bunch. All I'm saying is that it's a situation where we've been relying on third-party community members to host these things, and there's no solution to it coming from PoE. And this is not going to fix that at all. And people wanted that to be addressed. They didn't want it to be nerfed to this extent. And I think that's one of the reasons people are so upset about these things. So what's going to happen now is that I think that we also have another issue that people haven't really brought up too much, and that is the fact that we're in a position where we never looted, once Harvest got introduced, we never looted lower bases. If the base item was not perfect, we didn't look at it. It was not worth it. The reason for that is very simple, is we have Harvest crafts. There's no reason for you to have a lower energy shield providing a pair of gloves when you could just take a pair of sorcerer gloves or fingerless gloves, because they're the best, and craft them with Harvest and make a great item, because those mods on a lower base would just be useless in the end. And PoE has an issue where we ignore most items that drop. We completely neglect the existence of items that drops. There's so much fodder. There's just fillers of items existing because it's an ARPG. There's supposed to be loot exploding on the screen, but most of the things is 99% we don't even look at, and that's a big problem. But that's basically my take on what's going to happen with Harvest, and I think that it's very disappointing that trading it has not been addressed, and I wholeheartedly believe that this will hurt the casual players more than anything, which I do want to mention that I love the fact that PoE is a very hard game, and that the game is super complex and requires a lot of time to learn. I also think that sticking to that philosophy is going to hurt the game in the long run, and I would want to see PoE be a game that I play till I retire and later die, and have a pretty cool funeral, playing some awesome music. That's what I want to see. Well, I guess I can't see when I'm dead, but I think that to be able to keep the game in a state where there's a longevity to the game and it keeps a retention and keeps building new players, they are forced to cater to new players and casual players, which they have in a very good way. But this, in my opinion, is not a good way to do it. That's my personal take on it. But yeah, like I said, I will be posting a lot of crafting guides. I've already had prepped 12 crafting guides I was going to post, which I'm not anymore because they used Harvest crafts. I will be posting a ton of crafting guides in the link I'm putting in the descriptions below for my crafting hub. Check that out, because once these nerfs, in whatever way they might change it, we don't know, is implemented, there's going to be a lot of information there so that the casual players can learn what you guys can do in terms of crafting in that video, in that link. So check it out. And like I said before, I know that a lot of people have very strong opinions in this. Let me know in the comments below. But for the sake of everyone, please just be fucking civil, polite. It's not that hard. And if you can't be nice, click the unsubscribe button, go to another channel and be toxic elsewhere. Because I don't want you in my channel. Just be nice and we can have a discussion and we can see other people's opinions and we take it from there. Anyways, for those of you who actually did enjoy this type of content and this discussion, let me know. Hit the like button if you did enjoy the video, and subscribe for more content if you want to see more like this and other guides. Until next time, boys. Stay safe. Keep rocking.